An important time for us, an important time for the BCS, of course, and an important time for ISEB. Many things are happening, many things are changing. We hope we can share some of those with you today because it's important to say that, above all, ISEB is evolving. Ladies and gentlemen, the Impact Artistry. ISEB is evolving, so you may notice some changes. We've been working with international experts to ensure that our qualifications are relevant and in touch with the fast-moving IS industry. We've also created the new qualifications portfolio. This shows you the entire breadth of qualifications offered by ISEB, from service management and software testing through to data protection and freedom of information. So whether you're an IS professional who's looking to develop your career towards professionalism, or the manager of an IS department hoping to improve efficiency and motivation, ISEB is there for you. ISEB has developed benchmarks for quality and best practice, not only in the UK, but also internationally. The qualifications are being translated into more and more languages every single day, ensuring that ISEB becomes the de facto standard for the IS professional. Customer service is also vitally important to us, and our team have been working hard to ensure that not only are our qualifications relevant, but also delivered effectively and efficiently. To this end, we've improved our website, making it easier to find qualifications and courses. Everything in ISEB leads to professionalism, and we're looking to develop the professional IT industry. We hope that you'll join us on this exciting journey as ISEB truly is evolving for the 21st century. And to tell us more about the evolution of ISEB and the British Computer Society, please welcome the BCS CEO, Mr. David Clark.
Thanks, Will. There will be no cartwheels in this particular session. You'll be pleased to know how I actually got tired just watching. Professionalising the IT profession is something we've been looking at at the BCS now for nearly 4 years. In fact, a major programme was started about 3.5 years ago, really driven by, we're the industry body for the IT professionals. And everywhere we looked, the industry was being hammered. Computers fail everywhere. Everything seemed to be the fault of the computer. And we thought we really needed to do something about the image, and as it turns out, the reality of our profession. So we started the program. The first thing was to work out what we had to do. In fact, the first thing we had to do was to work out what professional means in this environment. And in fact, one stage when we were doing research, you could guarantee that if you had 100 IT professionals in a room, you would get at least 110 versions of what an IT professional was. So we had to define what it was, what you needed to do to become truly professional in this environment. We realized we couldn't do it by ourselves. We had to get the whole of the infrastructure of IT, the customers of IT, the suppliers of IT, and all the individual professionals, government as both a customer and a supply, and a policy setter, all involved in driving a new standard for the IT profession. That's now 3 years into the program. I've now come to the conclusion, I think, that we will never finish, but we'll always, I think, improve it. I think in 5 years' time, you'll see a very much more professional IT profession than today. In 10 years' time, a factor probably of 3 or 4 times that. It'll never stop, but we will continue to evolve this profession until we are considered to be where we should be. And that is the equivalent of any other profession. You know, there's almost nothing happens today without the input from an IT professional. Almost everything that you do, you touch, you use, is driven in some way by the IT profession. And yet we don't, as a profession, we don't get anywhere near the credit for all the really fantastic things that the profession creates. And that's because, of course, bad news is the thing that sells. So we have to change that perception. To do that, we have to change some of the reality. We think that there are a whole series of steps you have to take to become a true profession. We're trying, with the work we're doing with our partners, to do all of those steps. Huge amount of work. It really starts with having a skills architecture that everyone can understand. There is one common skills architecture, so that when we're talking about IT professionals, we know what we're talking about. There is one. It's one that actually the BCS has been contributing to for over 30 years, starting off as our ISM products and becoming the Sophia architecture, skills for the information age architecture, and that is now in the public domain with a foundation that we set up with 3 other partners. So a common skills architecture, really important. To have the gold standard that people search for, that people want to get to, the chartered standard for the IT profession. And we developed that and launched that just over 2 years ago. So there is a chartered standard for IT. And we want people to try, all the professionals in the IT profession, to want to get to that standard, whatever part of IT they're in. Now, in between all of that, we believe it's critically important that competency in IT is properly qualified, that people can get qualifications that are understood right across the board. No matter what company you're with, what supply company, what customer you're with, that the qualifications are understood as to what they are. And we've been very keen to drive our ISEB products to have a complete picture, if you like, to be able to provide qualifications and certification of competency standards at all levels in this skills architecture, which complement and build towards people becoming a chartered IT professional. It's really important that all of these elements come together. And I think the major piece of today's presentations will hopefully show you that we've gone a long way to making all those different elements come together. So thank you very much for coming, and my thanks and welcome. And I'll let you now get on with see the real content of today, which is how all this actually works.
How in fact this is put together, how in fact it is delivered. And so we find a little bit more from our courseware and test providers.
Well, we believe that ISEB qualifications are important to our clients from 2 aspects, really. First of all, there's the client that wants to be able to demonstrate these skills to their customers in as much that it's an inherent part of their product or service offering themselves. And then there's the client who believes that the ISEB qualifications will improve their techno infrastructure. They want to bring efficiencies into their technical area. And of course, you've also got the individual as well who comes to us in order for their own personal career development.
Increasingly, certification is becoming a really important thing for IT professionals. And the ISEB range of qualifications is the gold standard in this country. We've seen spectacular growth in these qualifications, 50-60% year on year, the sort of uptake. And our major clients, the major banks, communications companies, these are all demanding that their professionals achieve this sort of certification.
We offer training in the qualifications because they very much support our consultancy. I mean, one of the keys to our training is that our training is delivered by consultants, not trainers. And what it helps our clients do is when the consultant leaves the premises, if they put someone on the training course, it gives them someone who can pick up where the work that we've left behind and make sure that their investment in that work isn't lost, because they've got an internal resource that is far more efficient for them to use.
ISEB have an impressive range of courses, and what they've done is brought them all together under a simplified framework within categories and also various different levels. So you can compare the certificates across the different levels much more easily than you could do before.
The BSD certification in particular has been with us now for several years, and it was always very attractive and grew rapidly. But initially it was based around 5 different flavours of diploma. We've now structured that down to 2 flavours, and we've reduced the number of optional certificates down significantly. It's now a much better, tighter structured diploma that the client base can understand very easily. The 2 major flavours are the Business Analysis Diploma and the Systems Development Diploma. And there are 3 core certificates that are mandatory, and then you choose 1 optional certificate from 4. The way we train the ISEB diplomas is very much face-to-face in the classroom. The analyst skill is a relationship-building, consensus-building skill. That means very strong influence on not only techniques, but interpersonal skills. So we work in a classroom, small groups, and we have a real-world case study that runs right through the course. The groups will work in small teams of 3, 4, on applying the technique to the case study. The case study runs through the certificates, so by the end of the diploma, they've visited every aspect of a system deployment.
When organisations put staff through the training courses we do, the benefits they get are they're providing their staff with a recognised qualification, which is good for their staff, which will provide the staff with motivation and also make it clear to staff exactly what is expected within their job, based largely on standards. All our training is focused on an international standard of some sort, be it software asset management, be it information security, or be it some of the new risk management standards that are developing at the moment. So they have people who are working consistently, working to recognise best practice, who are motivated in their work, because they're seeing that their employer is investing in them in something that is tangible, and they can demonstrate that they actually do know about their subject.
Every organisation needs to develop its people. We need to make sure that our people are providing the service that our organisations need, that they're deploying best practice techniques, and that they are developing as the technology develops. That is only achieved through constant training and through mentoring, through experience, and through personal development. Organisations increasingly look to certification programs like the ISEB as being the gold standard to which they aspire.
where are we and what are we doing? What is the detail of ISEB and its evolution? Well, there's no better person to ask than one of the people who created our new framework and our new portfolio. Please let me welcome Paul Turner.
Afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for coming. Thanks particularly to all those people who helped us develop the ISEB portfolio for today's launch. I'm going to spend a few minutes just giving you a bit of background to why we're here today and what we've been doing, and then my colleagues are going to go through and look at the detail in 4 sections afterwards, and then I'll come back and talk about professionalism later on. First thing I'd like to say is that the project itself has gone on over the last year to try to harmonise all of the qualifications in the ISEB portfolio, particularly to ensure that we no longer get siloed into thinking about one part of the profession only understanding its own professionalism rather than the subjects covered elsewhere. The background in terms of what came in and influenced, and it's worth saying this is a two-directional thing. I think we were influenced in the work we did by quite a few initiatives. I'm not saying initiative overload particularly, but quite a few initiatives. But we also were very lucky to be able to influence some of the other things that are going on as well. So this has been a bit of a moving target for the last year and has kind of landed just about now, I think. Just to make it a little bit tricky, we were trying to cross-reference to Sophia, but Sophia was changing. The new version came out, so we try to keep in touch with that. As David said, the whole idea of professionalism is very important to everybody, and there's lots of initiatives in there, and we've been contributing back into that and looking at what was necessary. And I'll talk about that at the very end as well, about professionalism. But what we also realised was that you can't get to professionalism without having a journey through your whole career. So we were very conscious not to forget the people setting off and embarking on this profession from the start. I won't pursue the European bit very much, but trying to keep up with the British standard is tricky. Trying to keep up with European and worldwide standard is even trickier. I'd like to also say that one of the things we did was to try to get a lot of feedback from as many customers as possible. Those were people who did use the certifications and those who were thinking about it and had reasons for not doing so. So a lot of that was fed in as well. And also there is a whole series of BCS and ISEB publications that will be following through there. The most important thing for the rest of what everybody's going to talk to you about today is that there's really two axes to consider in everything we're doing. One is disciplines. One is looking at how subject areas are broken down, and it's only really when you look at those that you see what the coverage that is necessary and also the coverage that ISEB's done. This took a little bit of doing because I think if you got 4 professionals in a room together, they would find it very difficult to decide how to structure things into a taxonomy. This is what we came up with. This is not about life cycle particularly, although it can be used to implement life cycle. It is definitely not about job roles. One would use Sophia to build the job roles and then point to the appropriate qualifications that build up the set. So at the very end today, we'll talk about how it can be used to support job roles. But I think you can see from that there's pretty wide coverage, and that's the journey that we're going to go through in 4 very short presentations on each of the 4 major sectors that are in there. Loosely speaking, starting from the red and working round, I know I said it's not a life cycle, but there's not a lot you need to do in IT. All you need to do is identify what it is you need to do, plan and manage how you're going to do it, test it, assure it, buy all the assets that you need to make it possible, maintain that service, and make sure you're doing it securely and legally as you go along. That's pretty much it. Right? The problem is, of course, if you're only doing one of those parts and you don't understand the other parts, you're in real trouble. Right? So that's the coverage we tried to do. Secondly, the levels bit. We ended up with 4 levels, and I'll show you those a little bit later on. But the first of them was very much a foundation, very much a baseline, and I'll obviously talk about that one first. This had 2 major objectives. One was to provide a foundation for people who were going to go forward and become specialists in a particular discipline, but also to provide a grounding for all the others. And given all the foundations that we came up with, there is a lot of feeling that people need to have at least coverage of 3 or 4 of those foundations, if not more, as their career progresses, so they can at least understand the terminology, if nothing else, that the rest of the profession are talking. Then we move into, I guess, to the bulk, which is the practitioner and the higher levels. Practitioner level, very much specialising in one particular subject, and we'll look at those as we go through. So spot the words, I guess, foundation, practitioner, higher, as we go through the more detailed stuff in a few minutes. Higher was where someone was really a specialist still only in one particular area, for instance, business analysis or service management or software testing or the rest of them. The one I'll come back to later on is professional. Again, as David said, the word professional is being used an awful lot now, and I've got a bit of a definition of what we think it means. But it certainly means somebody who can be professional all the way through their career, but there is a point at which they can be called a professional. And I think that's the point where breadth and depth of qualification and an awful lot more than qualification is necessary. So that's the 4 levels that we've got. Foundation, as I said, was very much a baseline, pretty broad in its coverage, knowledge-based with a touch of kind of comprehension and understanding, but mostly knowledge-based, usually examined by multiple choice, which enables it to be used, obviously, fairly quickly in terms of examining, and internationally as well, to get people to get the basics to move on from, and also to be aware of what the next steps are. So between them, all the foundation certificates actually cover, at a very, very high level, everything that's covered by all of the practitioner certificates. As I said earlier, these aren't really cross-referenced to Sophia, because Sophia doesn't go down really to a knowledge level. It's very much about skills and competencies. So while we used it to get the headings, we didn't use it for level numbers. This is where we started. This is the middle bit. This is the foundation part with the 8 sectors. You can see all those on there. This is the 8 foundations. Each one will be very briefly talked about as we go forward, but most of what we'll talk about is the practitioners. I don't know if any of you thought about this. I've done it a few times and with delegates I've had on courses as well. If you cut that out and put a matchstick in the middle, you can spin that round, and that's a good way of deciding your career, I think. It sort of lands on one or the other, and a number of people I know have done that very successfully. As I said, it is suitable, these foundations are suitable for people who are going to go forward and specialise, but actually even very, very experienced professionals can benefit from some of these foundations. There are many that you probably know, love and hate or whatever in there, but the 3 new ones that have just been launched, they're all on the website, they are available, examinations are available in all of them now. The 3 new ones are the Foundation in IT-Enabled Business Change, which we think is a particularly important topic at the moment. Foundation in Development Delivery, one of the most successful areas of ISEB qualifications, never had a foundation covering development, delivery, and also touching on the evaluation of package solutions and COT solutions for those who don't develop their own software. And the 3rd one is the Foundation in Assets and Infrastructure to complement the area of service management. Before you do hear about the more detailed stuff on practitioner and higher, just to point out that practitioner is where the bulk of the ISEB certificates do sit, apart from the 8 foundations. These will pick a particular topic and typically over 3 to 5 days deliver really detailed coverage of that with examinations at the end. All examined in slightly different ways depending on the subject area. The range is enormous here as we work around the wheel, and you'll see that in a few minutes. We did end up still with the word essentials in there because it's still moving on top of the foundation, but looking at certain topics that needed, again, a bigger grounding. Business analysis essentials, systems development essentials, data management essentials, just to name some of them. Usually examined by scenario-based assessment, the ability to do rather than just the ability to know or understand. Hence why they do cross-reference to the appropriate sections in Sophia at levels 4 and 5 typically. And if you look at Sophia, you'll see what that means. Up to the higher, we realised that it probably didn't have the structure before. We realised that there were actually some quite significant collections of certificates that one could get to take you up to either the manager in service management or the diplomas in business analysis and systems development. Many of those existed, and I think there's likely to be more. And this is the first time really that we begin to see that people are taking examinations from across the portfolio to build up a set to become a higher qualified person. Not quite a professional yet, but that's the next one up. There's plenty, and if you look at the wheel, which I'll show you in a second, this is the outer ring. It's the bit where a number of qualifications add together, and that corresponds pretty much exactly to Sophia Level 6. So there's the wheel itself, which we'll discuss as we go through. We're going to take that in 4 parts, and I think the ceiling gets colour-coded to do that. And if I could, I'd hand over to Debbie Paul, who's going to talk about business change and projects. Thank you.
Paul's asked me to talk about the business change and projects quadrant of the wheel. And basically what I'm going to do is just take you through some detail on the practitioner and higher level qualifications in that area. So I hope everybody can hear me okay. If we look at business change first of all, as David Clark said earlier, IT does come into every part of businesses these days. But whilst the IT and IS profession has been developing, more and more practitioners operating in the areas that look at business need and actually identify where the businesses are coming from before moving into the IT solution. You've got so many more people developing in that area. And what we have found is that there have been various specialist roles developing in that area. So as far as business change is concerned, we now have qualifications that address aspects like business analysis, which is a very significant role nowadays. Consultancy, whether external or internal consultancy, is also